Alright, I'm doing a review on Reign of Superman, the sequel to the Death of Superman, and Reign of Superman, the sequel to the Death of Superman. Anyways, uh, this movie, it has some very ambitious twists on it. If you're not familiar with the comics, it is kind of a departure from the actual comic itself, but it explores the five, well, not the five, but it explores the Supermen that rise up in the absence of Superman himself. We have Superboy, who's kind of flashy, showman, flirtatious, uh, kind of immature, reminiscent of what's his name, the Flash from the Justice League cartoon, Wally West. Yeah. Anyways, we also have Steel, who is pretty much just inspired by Superman and takes up the mantle to protect people in his neighborhood. Uh, he's pretty much spot on. And then you have Cyborg Superman, who's kind of a sort of Frankenstein, sad love story type thing going on there, who has the real values of Clark Kent himself, or Superman himself, more so than any of the others. As this thing starts to roll out, we see Eradicator, who's pretty much the cold hearted, everything black and white, no mercy type. And then we also have Lois Lane herself, who's going through a lot here. She's essentially the main protagonist of this. Surprisingly, yeah. The Supermen themselves, they're kind of just sprinkled through. You don't get too much of each one of them. But Lois Lane as the main protagonist was pretty great here, especially in the end. This was a very strong Lois Lane movie, perhaps the strongest thing I've actually seen of her in an animated film or TV show. She was on a pretty awesome arc. I mean, at first it starts off with her mourning the death of Superman, and in light of the revelation that she just had recently found out that he's also that Clark Kent and Superman are one and the same, and you have the Kents here, you know, sharing a moment with her. She bonds with Wonder Woman a little bit, trying to find out about the other Supermen. She also finds out that Wonder Woman and Clark were a thing. That's kind of funny. There's there is some like mature talk in here too. Things not meant for children exactly, but this episode was large. Well, not episode. This movie was largely Lois driven. Like, and the supporting cast of Superman, they all have a big role to play in here. They don't do much, but characters like Jimmy Olsen and what was his name, Bebo, the fisherman type of dude, Cat Grant, Perry White, even Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor has a real shining moment in here, which is kind of funny because there is a scene after the credits where it sort of pays off on that moment even further, and that was pretty funny. Uh, it does feature the Justice League, Batman, Flash, uh, Hawkman, Martian Manhunter, Green Lantern, the Hal Jordan version, voiced by Nathan Fillion. Always hilarious to hear his voice. But they don't have the Justice League doesn't have too much of a big role here. Like I said, it's largely Lois Lane with the Superman sprinkled throughout it, and it has a pretty ambitious plot twist that will surprise some. It has connections with the other movie. If you're not familiar, the plot twist should surprise you. But the animation, it, this the animation is pretty great. Uh, Too often do modern day animation rely on CGI and all that. Uh, that whole Pixar Toy Story look. They don't do enough of the actual animation anymore in this style. Uh, it's always nice to see these characters in animation more so than live action because it just comes off like the pages of the comics are moving. But this movie is filled with action, lots of action. The real downfall is you don't get so much of the characters fleshed out like Superboy. I mean, you do get a pretty good chunk. Superboy and Lex, they have like this, like a Lex Luthor's like a dickish father to him. Early in the movie, there's the unveiling of Superboy as the new Superman, but he gets ass kicked by Eradicator, and he does get his ass handed to him a couple more times. So the media is all calling him Superboy, and it's pissing Lex off because he wants him to do better. He wants him to be the best. And you got these other characters all coming out of the woodwork, and the media's reporting on all of them, and Lois is trying to get the story on each one of them. You have John Henry Irons, who returns from the previous animated film, and he is still here, and Lois is not fooled by him for a second. She shows up later at his hideout, like, knows it was him all along. Uh, as for Eradicator, he doesn't get too much of a role in here. He's more probably the most mysterious one in the whole film. And the reality is, as when you do find out more about him, that's pretty much all there is to know about him, is what you get in the first place. As for Cyborg Superman, that's where it gets ambitious. That it even gets even further ambitious after the twist, revealing him to be Hank Himshaw and working for Darkseid, being used by Darkseid as an agent to usher in Darkseid's reign over Earth. And where it gets really ambitious is when it he starts converting normal people to be agents, superheroes like him, but they're pretty much just brainwashed and don't know who they are at all. They forget every aspect about themselves, and you see how a woman's boyfriend like volunteers for this, and how it hurts her because he's pretty much just gone in the head. He's no longer himself, uh, and they start policing the whole Metropolis. I don't know about the Earth itself. That Metropolis, they start policing Metropolis, and Bebo or Bobo. I can never remember his name correctly. He's like in his restaurant trying to rally Jimmy Olsen, Cat Grant, and all the other supporting characters to like stand up against this type of thing because he knows it's going to go wrong, that this isn't right. Uh, you had some really great stuff from all the supporting characters. Uh, Lois was very awesome in this film. Lois is like the spotlight character of this movie. You get great action from Steel. I gotta say, I didn't like his helmet too much. I don't know, something about it was bothering me, but I always liked Steel. It's one of my favorite ones. Superboy wasn't that impressive, but he did have a okay arc. The Justice League was in here, and they all go missing, so things are just that much worse because they're presumed dead, and the world mourns their loss as well about halfway through the film. So they get trapped in another universe, and so here's the great part is it's Lex that actually saves them so they can save Metropolis, and he's like, it's a business deal. That was pretty great, especially when the Justice League is talking after the end credits about going and stopping Darkseid, and Lex shows up to join them in his suit. Uh, Things get pretty brutal though. When they do find the real Superman has been recovering this whole time, and Vindicator's been used as a sort of vessel to transfer, you know, radiation or whatever for Superman. That's the gist of what I got of it. But it's been forever since I actually read that whole comic anyway, The Reign of Superman. So I'm not 100% spot on how this plays out, but in the film itself, it was pretty cool that how they pay off on what happened with the whole space shuttle, and how he kept saying Superman's gonna save us, Superman's gonna save us, but he never did. And you see the emotional toll and wreckage it's taken on him, and how he's just blaming Superman for Cyb- Hank Henshaw is Cyborg Superman, like I said, and he's just blaming Superman irrationally for what had happened, when the reality is all this was Darkseid's fault. He sent Doomsday there, and it was Doomsday that got his wife killed. It's great to see Superman in here, though. When he finally rises up, he's got the long hair, the black suit. Uh, Gets some very great action. He's got that like 5 o'clock shadow thing going on. He gets into it pretty big with the cyborg Superman. It actually gets bloody and pretty violent. And it's Lois Lane who ultimately saves the day. Like, she was amazing in this film. So as for the rest of the movie, I actually thought this movie was really good, really good, even though it is a departure from what I vaguely remember. I'll have to go back and reread that comic book, but I thought this was pretty great, especially for Lois Lane. And Lex Luthor, too, because he was such a dick throughout this movie, but he does get his moments that really make him shine, and those were great. And it was awesome to see Superboy depicted back in this type of fashion with the leather jacket and, the punkish attitude. So I'd give this movie an 8 out of 10. I thought it was very great, very strong stuff. As far as animated movies go, you know, this one's a pretty good one. uh, the actual like animation of the Superman costume, or Superman himself, the regular Superman. I'm not too fond of that one, but I do like the black suit one. That one, the way they did that was awesome. Looked pretty damn cool. Most of the characters in here, the animation, I pretty much liked all the characters in this, the way they were animated, except for like Steel's helmet. That bothered me. Superman, when he's just in his regular suit and looking normal, there's something about that felt off to me. But every other character I felt was pretty well animated, pretty well depicted in terms of their design. But like I said, 8 out of 10. Like, subscribe. There'll probably be a third entry into this. So comment, like, subscribe. Uh, Check out my GoFundMe link. Check out my PayPal link. If you want to support my channel, those are ways to do so. But ultimately, thanks for viewing. Rock on. Stay awesome.